What's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Six Figure Vet Podcast, where we share the success stories of veterans that have successfully unlaced the boots. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast on all streaming platforms and give us a follow on the gram at the Six Figure Vet.
I'm a
Let's go.
six-figure vet, self-made, self-built, didn't stop, dedicated, stayed down till I came up, that's patience. Dreaming to goals to plans to execution.
Welcome to another episode of the Six Figure Vet Podcast, where we showcase the stories of Black and Brown veterans who have successfully unlaced the boots. Now, today's episode is super special to me for two reasons. It is the final episode of Black History Month, and this guest is the first six-figure African American veteran that I have had the pleasure of knowing. A highly decorated 26-year retired Army Chief Warrant Officer. Now, those are just some of his accolades from being active duty. He is also an accomplished real estate investor who is buying back the block in the community he was born and raised in. NBA recipient, loving husband, father, grandfather, and matriarch of his family. My personal advisor, Anita Louise's eldest child, and my uncle, Anthony C. Powell, y'all. Welcome to the show, Unc. How are you feeling today?
Hey, feeling great. Glad to be here.
So happy to have you. First, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time to come on the show today. It's a real privilege to end Black History Month with someone that I feel like made Black history real for me. A lot of times, learning of these historical Black figures, they don't really seem real because society has a way of making us feel like, it was so long ago, or that these things were so great or so big that they were unachievable. But you most definitely were the first Black man or person in my eyes, within my own grasp, to see do a lot of things, from making six figures or owning a home. Even you were the first person, so you are Black history to me, and I just want to take this time to definitely just give you your flowers for that. Yeah, you the man, Stan.
I appreciate it.
Of course. So, y'all, we are from a very small town in Alabama called Sylacauga. Don't mispronounce our stuff. All right, it's Sylacauga. Can you tell us what it was like? What your upbringing was like?
Well, I was raised in a single parent household of four, and I'm the eldest. Myself and three younger sisters basically grew up in poverty. My mom, she received a monthly welfare check of $177. Some may ask why I remember that number, but it was a number that has been engraved in my head simply because it was so low, and she had to raise four kids with that. Now, she was also given, food stamps in order to get food, but the place that I was raised in was a place called Drew Court Housing Projects. So, as it says, it was a projects. And just growing up there, I didn't think anything was different, especially at a young age, because everybody around me was in the same situation.
Everybody was poor.
Everybody was poor. So I didn't think it was different until I actually reached the sixth grade. The school that I went to, Mountain View Elementary School, from the first grade to the fifth grade, it was kids that I grew up with that basically lived in the same community that I lived in. So we were all Black. And once I reached the sixth grade at Mountain View Elementary School, that's when it was kind of integrated with white kids. And that's when I began to start to notice a difference in, the attire that they was wearing, the shoes that they was wearing, and things of that nature. And I started, kind of seeing the difference, saying, I don't think we are doing so well.
Right.
But, hey, all my friends were in that same situation, so I didn't really give it a whole lot of thought until probably I reached high school, my ninth grade year. And at that point, I started to realize how important what my mom had been trying to instill in me from the get go, and that was education. I realized how important education was, and really started to take it serious at that point. And thank God I did, because I was able to do really well in high school, and I think that set the platform for me to join the military. And from joining the military, I think that right there was all the difference in the world. But going back to your question, I grew up in a very poor neighborhood, and the people around me, we were all the same.
Right. And I wanna double back on something that you said. You said in sixth grade is where you start basically going to school with white kids. So was this just the grade? Like, okay, at sixth grade y'all were integrated, or was this like because of Brown versus Board of Education? Is this time frame?
No, I think it was just the location, because I think kids go to school based on their demographics. And for some
Yes.
reason or another, like my friends who lived across town, from first grade to fifth grade, at Pinecrest Elementary School, white and black kids went there. But
Oh, okay.
because Mountain View Elementary School was located right there in Drew Court
In the
Projects,
projects.
yeah, so all the black kids, went to school there from first grade to fifth grade. But then Pinecrest ended at the fifth grade. So for the sixth grade, they had to be brought to Mountain View Elementary School, because that was the only sixth grade, right there in the community, with the
Right.
exception of, BB Comer.
Mm-hmm.
So they went to school there, and then we all kind of flowed to middle school, which was at East Highland High School from the seventh through the eighth grade, and then we went to Sylacauga High School from the ninth through the 12th grade.
Right. What made you want to join the army specifically? Like, you talked about how growing up seeing this poverty, right? And it was basically like normal. That was normality to you. So what made you be like, all right, I don't want to do this. I want to go and do something different,
Well, but,
especially as it relates to going to the army.
well, as it relates to going to the army, I had a couple of relatives that were in the military, and one of which who had the most influence on me was one of my older cousins named Lewis Edwards. And I didn't know anything about the military, simply because we didn't have no ROTC program or anything like that in middle school or high school. So when he would come home, he always seemed to have money, which is one thing that, growing up poor, we just didn't have. He had money, he dressed nice, he had a nice car. So I'm like, man, the military is it. And this is from a very young age. It's elementary. So once I seen that, I started to look around me, and the goals around that area right there was to get a job at a few places. One was Avondale Tex Mills, Kimberly Clark Paper Products, or Dixie Color. I think that was like some kind of chemical plant. But those were the places where you made a decent living,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I was striving for initially, until I saw my cousin, and he would come home and he'd tell me about all these places he's been and stuff like that. And me just looking at him, knowing like, man, this dude is doing really well. Me not
Mm-hmm.
knowing, outside looking in, not knowing what all it took to get to the point
The
that he was
sacrifice
at.
behind it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But he was the major reason why, I decided, hey, I wanted to make the military a career if possible.
So you knew from the jump going in that you was doing at least 20.
Yes, yes. And simply because I didn't see, once I started to get older and started to weigh my options, being that they were kind of aligned with the military, I'm like, okay, these are the pros of going into the military, and these are the cons. All right. And these are the pros and the cons of staying here in Sylacauga, with my family. And the pros and cons just outweighed the pros of going into the military, outweighed the pros and cons of just staying in Sylacauga, Alabama. So I just wanted to see something new, and definitely wanted to better my situation.
Now you were salutatorian, if I'm not mistaken, or valedictorian.
I graduated with honors from high school, but
Okay,
I
so
definitely,
you graduate with honors from high school. Why wasn't college one of your options, or was it?
It was definitely it could have been on the table, but I never, believe it or not, I never even thought about going to college simply because of our financial situation. I didn't know a
Yeah.
whole lot and didn't do a whole lot of research as far as
Mm.
scholarships. Didn't know nothing about loans or anything like that right there. Even when I got ready to enter my 12th grade year, we would always have to go in with sit in with the guidance counselor to go over our schedules, and the guy at the time was Mr. Turner. He was the assistant principal who was also acting as the guidance counselor. But he stated, he was like, "Oh wow, Anthony, what are you going to do when you graduate?" And I told him I was going in the army. He was like, "Whoa, wait a minute. With your grades, you should be going to college." And he was speaking total college for me, but I was like, no, I think I'm gonna go in the military. He said, well, what are you going in as? I didn't know anything else but enlisted, simply because my family members who were in the military, they were enlisted. I didn't know
Right.
nothing about officers, and as I stated earlier, we didn't have an ROTC program, so I didn't know nothing but enlisted. The guys that I seen on television on Saturday or whatever that said be all you can be, that was
Right.
it. So that's that's pretty much it. But I had the grades, thank God, to go to college, but I just didn't have the background to do the research to go to college. And I was also thinking like, man, I get to college, hey, where am I gonna stay at? What am I gonna be eating? My mom, she couldn't afford
Oh.
to, basically pick up on those loose ends and make sure everything was good to go. So I didn't want to cause her any further burdens than she already had.
And you know
So
what's crazy about that? It's like deja vu hearing this portion of your story because I've never heard it before, but I felt the exact same way. Super smart, really great grades.
mhm.
But I just didn't know. Like I didn't know. Only thing I knew how to do was fill out the college application. But to fund my way to actually be successful and get there, I was like, man, I think I was working at Crystals at the time. It was a Crystals in Silicaga, and I had went to Jacksonville State University. I had got accepted to JSU, and I was going to major in nursing. I don't know why I was going to do that. I don't even like dead people or blood, but um, and so I get there and I'm like, okay, how I'm going to afford to stay here? Okay, well, I got this job at Crystals, and it was a Crystals like 20 minutes away from campus. I'm like, well, maybe I could transfer my job, and I'm like, yo, this sound like failure to me.
Yep.
Like this sounds like failure to me. And um I haven't always made the best decisions, but I was definitely not setting myself up for that type of failure. So for those that are listening, that definitely have children, make sure that if you are not educated on college applications or funding or grants or scholarships or even just financial aid with loans, do that research because although the military has provided this platform is specifically for those of us that did go to the military and it's afforded us this amazing life, right? A lot of times it was our only option because we didn't have enough information for other things.
Yep. I totally
So
agree with that.
definitely educate yourself and make sure that your children are educated. So you in the military, right? And you already decided like, yo, this is gonna be my 20-year game plan. What made year 26 be the year that you say, all right, I've had enough, let's go ahead and step up, unlace these boots?
Okay. Well, I kind of knew, like you stated, that I was going to stay in for 20 years. I was going to try to stay in for 20 years simply because I entered the military right out of high school at 18 years old, so I could retire and be 38 years old. All right. At my 15-year mark, an opportunity was made available to me for a bonus of $30,000. So I took the $30,000, but in turn, instead of me getting a 50% retirement, it dropped my retirement down to 40%, where I had an opportunity to earn 3.5% extra each year to get back up to at least 50% or
Mm-hmm.
higher, depending
Right.
on the years that I stayed in. So I took the 30,000. I said, well, hey, I want to at least get 50% of my military retirement. So I stayed in longer for that reason. And Once I hit 26 years, at that point, I had been deployed 5 times for a total of 54 months. The
Mm,
first time I deployed, I didn't have no family, so I was single. But the last 4 times, they were grueling deployments. Deployment itself, dangerous.
very.
And unfortunately, after returning from my last deployment, I'm thinking that I had at least 2 years dwell time where I wouldn't be deploying again. And I had already kind of made up my mind, hey, I was just going to ride it out for those 2 years and go ahead and get out. And unfortunately, they came back and said, hey, we're deploying again. And it was within 12 months. It was right at the 12-month window from my last deployment. And at that point, I was like, oh, no, this is it. When people say, I used to always hear people in the military say, you'll know when it's time to get out. I was like, well, how do you know that? When that right there hit, that's when I knew, hey, it was time for me to get out. So it was another deployment, which would have been my sixth deployment had I went. That was my determining factor, and I think I had basically set myself up uh, financially and gotten some things that I know I needed done that the military had supplied, and I felt the military had ran its course, and it was time for me to open up a new chapter in my life.
Right. How did you So was that you taking the 30,000 at year 15? Was that a strategic move?
It ended up being a strategic move, you know, throughout my military career up until that point, I think we would have, in savings probably up to $5,000. That's my wife and I, and then we had, ended up having two kids. So $5,000. My mentality was, hey, as long as everything's paid, my wife and kids they had everything that they needed, then I was pretty much good, and we had money just in case of an emergency took place. I
Mhm.
was able to
Right.
get back home and not have to stress about it. But when that $30,000 opportunity, the bonus became available, I took it. But God just kind of worked in my favor in that right there and made it a strategic move, but not on my part. I was actually deployed when that money hit. So being in a combat zone,
Tax
that
free.
money was tax free, right?
Whoo, yeah.
Yep. So I got that money, that $30,000. I paid my tithe, all of it tax free, paid my tithes off of it. And from then, they used to have a organization, USPA and IRA, which catered to officers. And now it's called First Command. And I went and I invested it in First Command.
The
And
whole thing after tides?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that right there is what really, started to set me up. It was just, I'm telling you, everything was just God. I did that. And then probably a half a year later, it was time for me to deploy. I mean, not deploy, PCS from Fort Sill, Oklahoma to Alaska. And we had purchased a house when we first got there to Oklahoma. So I ended up selling the house, and we made about 30K off of that. So and then went to Alaska and was deploying, and money just started. It was like money was coming in so fast, and I was not used to it, to the point where when I would be deployed, I would always check my account, and I get back in touch with my wife, and I'd be like, hey, did you pay this, did you pay that, if at first. And then I was like, well, hey, just put that money in savings, because I'm thinking, hey man, we done missed something or something going on, until I
You making
got
so much
used to
money,
it.
you like something to get
Yeah,
paid. Now
yeah,
wait a minute.
yeah, I'm serious. And I know she was doing the right thing. It was just I wasn't used to getting that type of money. And then once I got used to it, I had to find a way to make that money make me more money.
Let's
And
talk about that shift. Let's talk about that adjustment period, because I have a follow-up question this question is gonna lead to another one. But what was that adjustment period like from, because you went through a couple different financial adjustment periods. You went through, of course, being poor, section government assistance, food stamps, to being self-sufficient enough in the military to where you don't have to do that anymore. So
right,
that was one shift.
mhm,
Um and that shift kind of gives you like some independence, right?
right,
Then you go through this other shift where you're gaining rank. and you are at a space where you could say, I got $5,000 at the bank, which is unimaginable from where we come from,
Right.
especially at this time. Then you go through another financial shift where your income is increased so much to where it's kind of giving you a little bit of panic because you like, is stuff getting paid? So walk me through those emotions and how you were able to keep up with them, because a lot of times, we gain this money, right? We get this money, and because we ain't used to it, we mess it up.
Right. I,
That's what happens.
I see that a lot right within my own, family, where money is made or you come into a lump sum of money and it's gone. Well, saving money was instilled in me early on in life by my grandmother, who always told me, hey, you spend a little, you save a little. And for some reason or another, that just it just clicked with me. And growing up, in the projects and stuff like that, we had kids that could be really mean, and so you had to take care I know I had to take care of the stuff that my mom was able to afford to get me. So I learned how to take care of stuff early on. So when I did start to make money, yeah, it was a little like overwhelming simply because of the amount of money that came in so fast, so quick. So I was like, man, I'm used to this standard of living, which was well below my means already. So why am I gonna just jump and spend, $30,000 that I just got from this bonus, and $30,000 that I just got from selling the house, and now we're making extra money. Like I said, long as my family was good and they had what they needed, everything they needed, and most of the things that they wanted, I was good. I always took care of my personal belongings. Anything that I got, I like nice things. I'll spend money on things, but I want them to be quality, and I want them to, be able to last. So I try and take care of everything that I get. And that just was instilled in me when I was, real young. And it's still here today. So having money, I don't think it changed me at all. It just, I said, hey, I was a little bit more comfortable and had a little bit more peace of mind
Yeah.
once I got used to getting it. So I just like, try and making it, try to make it grow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
And as I stated before, you were the first in our family to do a lot of stuff. Can you talk about some of the challenges faced with being the first person in your family to achieve financial success?
Well, and you know this now too, probably. Uh, Everybody comes to you for stuff, and it's hard to say no sometimes because guilt that you've achieved something. But I give you an example. My first deployment to Saudi Arabia during Desert Shield, Desert Storm, I had saved up close to $10,000. I wanted a car when I returned. So when I returned, I had started also buying saving bonds at that time, prior to even deploying. So I had saving bonds and stuff, plus the $10,000 that I was going to use to get have a down payment for a car. Some of that money. But when I came back, I planned on going back home to Solicog, Alabama. I was stationed in Washington State, and I was going back home to see my family. But my mom, she had an issue with the car. I think she needed an engine or a transmission. And I'm like, oh man, that's the money I set aside to um, come home. So I told her, hey, I'm not coming home. I send you this money to get the car repaired, but I'm not coming home simply because I've always set goals for myself. And that was
Yeah.
one of the goals, to get a vehicle. And I wasn't going to break that. So I just sacrificed not going home to get a car. But being the first to do something, man, everybody kind of come to you or solicit you for advice or help. And I don't mind giving advice. I don't mind helping. I just want to see, especially my family, do better with the advice or the help that I give them, and not continue to repeat the same mistakes over and over.
Hmm. How has setting boundaries and how is setting boundaries and setting goals contribute to your success?
Um, Setting boundaries have allowed me to get that one important word in my vocabulary,
Can
and
you
that's
spell it
no.
slow?
No. Because, like I said, like when you grow up and you me myself, I'm like real family oriented, and my family, I cried every night when I was in basic training, man, because I had never been really out of the state of Alabama and never had really been away from my mom and my three sisters. That was like my network, my core. So anytime they asked me for something, my mom said, "Hey, this right here is going on. I need some help on this right here." I felt obligated, and I wanted to initially. And I felt obligated to help. But after a certain point, I was like, "Whoa!" Especially when I got married, I was like, "Whoa!" Now, I'm being taken advantage of, and that's when that word "no" came into my vocabulary. So, I'm sorry. Did I answer that question, or
Yes, you
was
did.
was it
Yes.
more to
No,
that?
it's that's it that you answered it. And I think that, there's a duality in achieving and setting goals and creating boundaries. And that
Yeah.
also is not only with, other people, it's also with ourselves. We have to be able to tell ourselves no. We have to be able to hold ourselves accountable. You know, I'm pretty sure that you wanted to go home when, your mom needed the money for the car. I'm pretty sure you was looking forward to going home, and you probably could have put yourself in a financial bind by doing both.
Right.
But you denied yourself and said, "Hey, you know what? I have the money, but it can only be used for one thing.
Yep.
So this is what I'm going to allocate it for." And you chose not to go home. And I'm pretty sure that you wanted to and it was hard for you. But so many times I feel like that's where, you know, our own financial abuse to ourselves comes in, that is we over allocate funds,
Yep.
and we
Yep.
do that, and then, that's what keeps us stuck in these cycles, because we have no boundaries with ourselves as it comes to money. And I'm just now realizing that, right? Because when I came into this realm of, making six figures, whatever I make, I would be like, okay, if I do this, I can do whatever I want to do.
Yep.
But that's not how you acquire wealth, and that's not how you build something grand. I had to create firmer boundaries around money with myself in
Hmm.
order to really start seeing a major financial change. And I feel like when I did that, God was like, "All right, she's serious now. Like, all right,
Right.
we can get a little more now. We can do a little more." But I like that you said, the no word is super important as it comes as it relates to other people and us. So that was definitely a great answer. So how did you, y'all, my uncle, it's I want to brag again on him. I'm gonna do that a lot in this episode because, baby, this is my uncle, okay, and I'm gonna boost him up. He How many houses do you own currently?
We have a total of 9, but really 8 rental properties. So it's a total of 9, not including our main, home that my wife and I live in. So it's a total of 9, but 8 of them are rental properties.
Okay, so you have 8 rental properties. Take us on
Right.
the journey of how you got started in real estate.
Well, really, it was a sad way that I got started in real estate. I was deployed to Iraq. My sister, your mom, ended up passing. I came home. My niece and nephew were
That's
living in a
me,
place.
y'all.
Yes, living in the place that their mom had rented for a while, and the lady, I think she went up on the rent or something. And at that point, I was like, man, I should just get a place because I was paying the rent. So I was like, man, I should just buy a place and have them live in it. And at that point, I ended up. My sister found the place. I purchased it, and that was the most debt I had ever been. I was scared to death, but that was the most debt I had ever been in because we had at that time we were living in Alaska. We were stationed in Alaska, so we had a a home in Alaska, and then we had just purchased this place in Sylacauga. And so that right there didn't really work out. So, I know you went to live with my sister and my nephew. He went ahead and got his own stuff or whatever. So at that point I started renting. And once I got, a little foundation and got kind of comfortable with that, I think the bug bit and I was like, oh man, I need to get more of these things. And that's how I started buying like properties. And it ended up being the majority of them being foreclosed properties.
That's and this was during what time? Because my mom passed away in 2007, and I think the recession hit in 2008.
Like eight, yep, yep.
And
And
so you were in such a great financial position that you were able to take advantage of the recession.
right, yes. It just in '07. Now that house right there wasn't a foreclosure, the first one I purchased, but got it. And I had, connections and stuff, friends who were doing real estate and things of that nature. So they turned me on to the foreclosures and gave me some help with the different sites and how to go about maneuvering those sites. And I bought my first foreclosure for a fraction of what I did my first property. And after that right there, my wife and I, we just started, like I said, it was '08. The market was flooded and you could get something for almost nothing. And I just started buying them. We were in Alaska, and like I said, I was telling you, I was asking my wife, "Hey, did we pay this? Did we pay that?" We had like an excess amount of cash that was coming in, and I felt that purchasing properties would be a good way to invest my money because I'm not one of them ones that believe in the get rich quick type stuff.
Hmm.
I'm constant. As long as I'm getting a certain amount of money at a regular basis. I'm slow and steady. If I can get it slow and steady, I'm good. Some people aren't like that, but that's how I am. I'm kind of conservative.
Now you bought these properties at such a great time at such a discounted price. I know that some of them have probably doubled, tripled, and quadrupled in value. What keeps you from not selling them?
Um, I believe that a property can continue. The properties that I have paid for themselves time and time again, and I'm continuing to generate income that once I'm gone, if my kids keep them, they'll be able to generate income. And you're right. The At the time that I purchased the properties, I did some renovations to them and stuff like this, and some of them have quadrupled in price as to what I can sell them for. But I don't see myself ever selling them during my lifetime simply because they continue to generate money on a consistent basis monthly. I'm like, why would I get rid of this? I've had plenty of opportunities to sell and get out of them, but and make a decent profit, but I don't see that. I'm in it for the long term.
Right. Now we had another veteran on here that he didn't have as many properties, but he was just saying that there's a lot of, downfalls of being a landlord and owning homes. So what are some pros and cons of being a landlord for you?
Well, the pros are you have a property that appreciates in value. It increased my our overall net worth, and that property generates income on a consistent basis. And then, oh my God, it's a laundry list of cons, man. I've had a property that was burnt. I had a resident that lived there for probably 6 years from the time I acquired the property. They got it, didn't have no issues with it. They ended up splitting. The guy, he stayed in the place. He paid me on a regular basis. Never had any problems. And all of a sudden, just stopped paying. So I had to go to court, get him evicted. And within that 7 days of him having to be out of the property, the property mysteriously caught a fire.
Wow.
Yeah, but I had insurance on the property. I had recouped all of my money to include down payment from that property, and was actually that was like a cash cow, that particular property. And when it burnt, I had insurance, so at the end of the day, I would have wanted to send him a card for Christmas, cause yeah, got broke off. But I've had tenants that come in and they pay every month on time, no problems. But you go to inspect the property and it's filthy, just totally filthy. So I had to start detaching myself from the property. I started doing some of the renovations myself, and I know, hey, this is how I would keep my property, but how will a tenant keep it? So I would just go in and check for damages, i.e., holes in the wall, doors off the hinges, things of that nature. But as long as that right there was in place, I kind of you kind of got to know your tenants, and you got to tolerate certain things, because if you're getting tenants in 1 month and putting them out 5 months later, you're losing money because you're
Yeah.
having to go back in there and do renovations and stuff. So I just keep them in. Once I get them in, get the rent to where I want it, and they're paying me my rent, and they're not burning the place down. I just try to keep them in there for as long as I possibly can. And I'm no slumlord or anything like that. I take care of my property.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
because your turnaround time on tenants is really really good. Like your
right.
tenants stay in your properties for a really long time.
Yep.
What is more difficult? Well, what was more difficult, acquiring the sets that you've been able to get, or maintaining it?
I would say acquiring it, because once you get a mindset as to you know who you are and what your goals are and how you go about doing day-to-day business. I think you can keep your money and continue to make money. I think just starting to get to that point, that's like I said, I had 5,000, we had $5,000, and I was like, oh, this is decent right here. And it wasn't until I got that lump sum and started to, like, I had more money so I could generate more money.
Mm-hmm.
And once I started generating money and being able to invest in things that I couldn't invest in with the $5,000, I could invest in things, and those things could make me more money. So once you start doing that right there, you'll kind of keep making money. It'll just keep generating. And as you get older, certain things, responsibilities, they kind of go away. Your kids get older, so they move out of the house, so you're no longer spending money on them, and you're able to just generate income. So I would definitely probably say just getting started, as opposed to trying to keep what you actually have, as long as you have some common sense, some goals, and some a basic foundation as to how to do business.
How did you keep yourself motivated in the process of acquiring?
Once I seen um, what this could do, i.e., build wealth and generate a steady stream of income, that right there motivated me. I've always been, like I said, from a young age with my grandmother. She taught me, the importance of money, having some money. And once I seen that these properties could do that for me, I've always that motivated me.
What is your long term goal with real estate investing? Do you have a certain amount of properties that you're trying to acquire, or you're just like, I'm gonna just keep collecting these things like Thanos gloves?
Yeah, I don't have a certain number. When I was in the military, I wanted to have 4 properties prior to retiring from the military, and I think I ended up having 6 before I retired. But I don't have a certain number to get. I want to be able to something, because I manage my own, but I think I don't want to be like overwhelmed, because like I'm 54 years old right now. I work, and by the grace of God, still in decent shape. So I just want to be able to manage, and enjoy it. I don't want to be overwhelmed where I got a whole lot of properties, and I still want to be involved. So I don't really want to, kind of hand it off to someone to manage. So I don't know.
You are the second veteran that has came on the platform and stated that you are still employed. What keeps you gainfully employed? What keeps you wanting to stay within the job, or within a career field?
Well, one, it generates money. Um, And I think when I retired, I was blessed with the opportunity to pursue my master's degree through the VA. So I did that for like a year and a half. And once I graduated, I was kind of like bored. I had free time, and in the summertime, it was cool because I'm a kind of round the house type guy. So I clean the house, I wash the cars, I love cutting grass and things of that nature. And when I could, I'd get down to Silicon and mess with the properties or what have you. But when it got cold, I didn't have anything to do, so I got bored, and that's when I ended up going back to work. And I love the camaraderie, and I love being a part of a team, being able to contribute to that team, and somewhat knowing, exactly what I do. So I just think it's a combination of things. I've all, being in the military for 26 years, you kind of grow to get used to working with people to obtain a certain goal. And that's the same thing I'm doing on a day-to-day basis with my job, because I work for the government still.
Now, for the last question, what advice would you give a transitioning service member or vet as it pertains to achieving success?
I would say one, definitely, and they'll tell you this right here. You have to network. I've had 3 jobs since I've been retired, to include the one I'm in right now, and all of them that I've gotten, it's been through people who have known me and known my work ethics, and knowing what I could actually bring to a team. So definitely network while you're in the military. And I know some people come in young like myself. You're healthy and all this right here, and at the beginning of your career, I know at the beginning of mine, it was always taught, hey man, you don't go on sick call, and none of that right there. You could be a little hurt, but you're not hurt. But I would definitely tell them to go on sick call, get everything documented. And that's simply because once you leave the military, they basically look at how you came in the military, your health and everything, and now how you're leaving the military, your health and everything. And if anything is different that happened while you was in the military, you can be compensated, monetarily compensated for that. And that right there could improve your standard of living. So definitely get some education while you're in there, because the army, or the military, is going to pay for you or assist you in getting your education, paying for it. So definitely take advantage of that, because that's something that no one can take away from you, and you can definitely use it once, you're out of the military, whether you retire or not. And that right there is going to help on the outside. So education, which is going to be able to help generate money. Make sure you're going to sick call, get everything annotated, which can definitely generate money and VA disability if you get a certain amount of disability. And then just networking, learn as much as you can while you're in the military. So you'll be able to take that experience out and be able to offer it to an employer, whether you retire or, do a few years and get out.
Amazing. Uncle Tink, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show today, giving us your story, dropping so many gems, so many gems. Your words of wisdom have definitely marinated all throughout this episode. My uncle is not active on social media, guys.
No.
So he's not active on social media. So take in all his gems on this episode, okay? Again, Uncle Since, I just want to say thank you so much. And of course, this is another episode of the Six Figure Vet podcast. Six Figure Vet out. If you are a veteran, active duty service member, or civilian that is currently in a mental health crisis or suffers from mental health issues, please dial 988. Trained crisis responders are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the calls are completely confidential. Again, that number is 988. Veterans and service members, press 1. You don't have to suffer in silence.